All right, running a little behind, so I'm just gonna fly through these. Good to see you all. First time here in Lisbon, I'm super excited. LXJS 2013. Last year on LXJS, you might remember all the awesome stuff that happened that I actually wasn't here to see. Nodecopter happened here. That was, I think, the first time that actually happened. That looks super cool. There's Felix Geisendorfer apparently levitating that with his hands. Next up, an exciting episode. Max Ogden gave Dominic Denicola a fish for answering the latest, what is the latest stable version of Node. That was exciting. Also, you might remember Substack. NPM's most prolific committer fixed his laptop with a butter knife. Me, I was at home watching it on the web, drowning my sorrows in Jinja, but that's cool, whatever. Anyway, if you want all the details, there's a transparency report that they put together. It's super cool. It's got all these details and stats about like all the stuff that went down, so you should definitely check that out. It's on their awesomely designed website. Anyway, that was last year. Now, let's talk about this year. There's the awesomely designed website, and it's also responsive. Good job, guys. The logo has gotten a little bit of a level up. You can see the logo of this thing. It's down here, actually, over in the upper corner, right there. It's a little bit of a mystery to me. I think, you know, they actually, like in the speaker bag, there's actual swag. There's like tiles and stuff, and I was just like, wow. And I was like, oh, I think I get the logo. It's 4 brackets, 4 commas, and 4 semicolons, which is an excellent troll because there's no combination in which those work in JavaScript. So bravo, guys, really, bravo. The venue is awesome. I was just talking to Antonio yesterday. He used to come here as a child, as a cinema, to see movies and stuff. Just super nice design, straight from the 50s. Look at the really like rounded marquee there. Look at the super rounded seats, even the bathrooms, the whole thing. Really cool parties I'm excited about. Tomorrow Club Judge, which I'd never heard of. Apparently a company from Amsterdam. And if you go to their Twitter thing, it says they are your platform for partying worldwide. So I'm pretty psyched about that. Spotify is tonight's party. It's apparently on a boat. You, I think, need to pre-register. It's like 200 people. But it's free. You just have to install Flash. Last night's party, which I saw a bunch of you at, was sponsored by Append 2, but because it was before the conference, I really think it's pre-Pen 2. Guys, come on. I'm not super up in my jQuery. About the speakers who you're here to see, man, look at this fantastic roster, well, slightly blurry, but fantastic roster of hip, circular, avatared speakers. It's clear the organizers put a lot of work into this, into choosing the speakers. It almost seems like there's like a Noah's Ark thing going on where they like curated, like, you know, we need one of this and one of this. For example, there's a Chips and there's a Lips. There's a Fabro, there's a Babro. There's a Dominic and a Dominic. There's a cow bag, there's a rod bag. We got the animal kingdom up in here, the crane, the wolf, and the boas, I guess. We got the Mills and the Gillis, I think that's how you pronounce his name. We got Belders, we got Burgers, we got Nymans, we got Naumanns. We got Parks, and I guess every park needs its gardener. We got Ollie Evans, we got Oliveras. We got Hudson's, we got Johnson's, we have Andrew, we have Andre, we have and yet again. We got Dustin's, we got Thorsten's, man, we got Erals, we got Michal's, we got Vyasheslav's, we've got Igorov's. Yes. Really, wow. Okay. We have Wiles. We also have Wiles, I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of running out of jokes here, so sorry, I couldn't get to these 6. Apologies, guys. Couldn't fit you in. Let's talk about the schedule. The schedule is right here. You can see, well, it's not really the schedule. It's really only by block, so you can't actually see who the speakers are, which is kind of annoying for me, at least. But it's cool. I talked with the guys, a little bit of JavaScript magic. We put together a schedule app. Can you guys open your browsers? I want you to actually just check this out. It's like an HTML5 thing where you can actually see all the speakers and stuff and when they're actually going to appear. If you guys just go to bit.ly, LXJS hyphen 2013, just fire that up in your browser. It's going to load. It takes a little while. It's an HTML5 type Angular app. So, because the JSON API and the browserify, it kind of takes a while to load. But once it gets up, you should, nothing? Is it just loading, just spinning there? Nothing? Really? I just let it sit. Something I just, kind of threw together. Oh. There it is. I knew I'd get one of you. Technically, it's not a Rick roll. That would be way too 2008. This is Rick Astley's other single, Together Forever. Anyway, thank you, HTML5 audio. Anyway, sorry, I'm just going to fly through the rest of this. My name is Jed Schmidt. You might know me as that guy who watches conferences online while drinking ginger. But I do other stuff too. I was at CSSConf EU a few weeks ago. Was anyone there? Awesome conference. It was really great. I gave an entire presentation using only valid CSS. So this one actually applies to this conference too. List of speakers in their top 1% of their field where their backgrounds are absolutely badass. In my free time, I also write JavaScript medleys and sing them based on Disney tunes. Don't judge me. Also, I do some code. I did 140 bytes, which is this code golfing thing. I did this thing called Browserver, which is like putting a server in your browser. I have this thing called Jed Toolkit. Well, it's not really mine, but someone named it after me. Alex Sexton, didn't get my permission. Not cool. Whatever. Don't worry about it. I'm over it. But yeah, so I am I guess I'm the only JS speaking here, which is kind of cool. Although every time I come to these conferences, I have this like huge imposter syndrome because technically I only started programming for a living last year. Before that, I was less of the JS and more of the JA. I was a Japanese translator, and so is that Rick? Please tell me that's Rick Astley. Sorry. Anyway. So yeah, I was a translator. So I studied in college, and I just kind of fell into this gig as a translator. Could not code at all. Had an idea to develop some software. Moved to China to develop it, and that's where I learned JavaScript. So I'm kind of a late learner when it comes to that. But it's funny because translation and programming they're so similar. And you could say, if you were writing a Hacker News blog post title, you would say, everything I know about programming for translating, but really, the message is natural languages and computer languages aren't that different. I think there's a lot of similarities, and I think basically, because this audience, I imagine, is largely bilingual, you can all relate to this, because having learned both. To me, thought, what I'm thinking right now, and turning into prose, and saying to you is the same thing as turning a VM into some JavaScript code or from JSON, right? It's the same thing. You're just taking a complex graph and you're serializing it. So, to be cute, language is just stringified thought, and thought is just parsed language. And so translation basically is the act of doing both. And, it doesn't always work out. If you have really complex thoughts and they are circular, you will throw. That's cool. But basically, I just want to give you guys, in the next 5 or so minutes, a bunch of observations I've made about language as someone who came from more of a natural language background. One is how much language affects your worldview. It's really incredible. You guys, actually, there was this tweet. Robin Mayer, one of my really good friends from Berlin, had this tweet. Observation, people using Sass seem to tend towards having super deeply nested CSS selectors. Would you find this true? Yeah, it's this tool that abstracts away all of this nasty stuff, and you use these deeply nested CSS selectors which don't perform very well. But it's the function that the tool makes it so easy for you that you end up writing that. I feel like the same thing is true if people use CoffeeScript, which I used to use a lot at my previous job. Comprehensions are so easy that you use them everywhere, and then you look at the JavaScript code that's generated, and it's like literally 3 times the size of your CoffeeScript. So this is something called linguistic relativity, the fact that the language you're using affects the way you think. You might have heard it as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, or also the Blub paradox, which is an essay by Paul Graham, where basically he uses it to justify the dominance of Lisp. Anyway. But I'm a Japanese translator, so one of the things that really resonates with me in terms of natural language is we have, the Japanese are very, very comfortable with ambiguity. And the people have a lot of cultural reasons for it. But for me, it's as easy as the language that we speak right now, English, it's subject, verb, object. I drink coffee. Or if you're writing code, it would me drink coffee, right? The verb is in the middle, the subject is on one side, the object is on the other side. You need all three. The thing is, that's not the way Japanese works. Japanese is subject, object, verb, which means you say, I coffee drink. Which is fine, but the problem is, attached to the verb is positive, negative, the tense, all that stuff. And so all that stuff, like if you have like a super deeply nested sentence, like when it happened, if it happened or didn't happen, the positive, all that stuff is at the end of the sentence. So Japanese people need to, while they're listening to this language, the longer the sentence, they need to buffer all that out and store this like state that is incomplete in their mind. And I feel like that's maybe a kind of similar thing where because they need to store this state before they can actually evaluate it, they're just more comfortable with ambiguity. That's just an example I came across. Another thing is I learned is that's very similar is you ain't gonna need it. Stuff like this is super, super helpful in, this is like the Rosetta Stone of like the New York City subway. You know, that's an awesome use case for when you would need translation. Here's a less awesome use case for Zipcar. I don't know if it's really kind of blurry, but you can see up in the corner. They offer me, they're like, hey, let's internationalize our site. Awesome. And then they give me two choices, British English and Canadian English. What are you doing? I don't even know a Canadian. I mean, I could make some jokes, but Brian LaRue's here, so. Yeah, today's quick hack is tomorrow's headache. I'm sure this is something you guys all relate to. You're like, oh, I'll just fix it. I'll just do a quick hack, and like the hack lives forever. And that can actually really catch up to you. In translation, for example, let's say you have a website about pastel de nata, which is like, right? So you have a website, and you're like, you know what? I should totally localize that. I should have a Japanese version. I should translate it. But the translator's not done yet. So you know what? I'll just put in some lorem ipsum. What could possibly happen? Well, here's what happens when you never go back and fix this. Now you have two problems. So Google Translate, I'm sure you guys know how Google Translate works. It scours the web looking for parallel translations and sucks them in. So it sees your Latin and your original English, and it actually thinks that that is an actual translation, which means this lorem ipsum, which is kind of like a kind of a garbled Latin, turns into this, which really only makes sense. I think we can all agree this only makes sense in one context.
We will be sure to post a comment. Add tomato sauce. No tango traditional online. Until outdoor environment, and not just in.
All right, that's enough. Anyway, so yeah, that's those small things can add up. Another thing is cool to start small. If you have like a really big project idea and you want to program it, like if you have it, if it's too big, it's going to take you too long. I feel like learning language is the same way. Start small. If you're really nervous about talking to people, which you usually are if you're learning a new language, talk to your phone. Like it's actually really good to see, like, can Google figure out what I'm trying to tell it, or Siri, right? Next thing is go to, like, for example, if you're learning Chinese, when I was living in Beijing, Starbucks was awesome because it's like this, you know exactly what the interaction is. It's totally scripted. And so you can have these really, really small wins. So instead of trying to learn this large thing of Chinese, you just learn like one subset of it. Which is really nice and it's really predictable. And then, you can talk to your friends and basically ramp up that way. By the way, if you're learning Chinese, they have some excellent pastries. I don't know if you've seen this. It's a Chinese thing. Just kidding. It looks pretty, I don't know, is that mayonnaise? I don't even know. Chinese is a tonal language, which means they have ma, 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 ma. 4 tones, which is weird. Having tones in a language in a random part of speech is like literally having punctuation in your keywords. It's like, it's really, really hard to figure out. But if you guys do there's the dude method. If you guys are learning Chinese, this is awesome. This is the best. This is literally the best language learning advice I've ever gotten. You learn them by saying different ways you would say dude to someone. So like, dude, that's a high tone. Dude, you always do that. And there's like, dude, did you eat all the pastries? And there's like, dude, what are you doing? And there's like, dude, get out. Anyway. Test, test, test. This is not just true of programming. It's true of translations. Stuff is going to happen. Like the fact that he didn't even know it was an error. He thought that, it's so, and even if you translate it right, maybe they're not going to render it correctly, or maybe they're going to kern it poorly. Customers around the wand. No, that's an R and an L. I'm sure that was a kerning mistake. And if that wasn't, this certainly was or is. So yeah, Stefan's site, I don't know if he's here, but he has this great shirt, Leem to Kem. And then some things you're like, oh, that's totally a mistranslation, but it's not. That's an actual Japanese beverage you can go and buy, and it comes with carbon offsets. It's so weird. So yeah, that can be misleading too. Also, stuff like this, I don't know if you've used this app. It's WordLens, and I use it to translate something from German to English, and it literally looks like Zalgo text. So sometimes it's just tough. But otherwise, you know, language evolves. We don't have control of it. You know, the Japanese in many ways have really just taken it as their own, and you have to kind of just back off and be like, you know what, you're going to run with that. There is really very little I can do, you know, because there's only so much English you can correct. Although I do like the volitional with the noun. Let's noun. I kind of like that construction. I wish we would bring that back into English. Another thing is abstractions are expensive. If you don't want to write JavaScript and you want to write another language that compiles into JavaScript, that's expensive. I mean, maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not. But for me, it was like living in China and literally going to this bodega where it was like bodega for foreigners. They would sell 2 kinds of shampoo, one in Chinese and one in English, and the English one was always like 10 times the price. Oh man. Context trumps logic. You would think that this is a translation. It's actually not. The above says, welcome home, and the bottom says, welcome to Japan. So that's kind of weird when you speak Japanese, but the best code is not written. This thing right here says, push the part that says P-U-S-H because they localized the faucet to English in Japan. Why would you do that? Likewise, why would you design an interface where there's a green button that is not, it's not the flush button, it's the emergency button, but why would you do that? And they have to translate. So like, you know, if you just design better, you wouldn't have to translate. Anyway, all these vignettes, my point is, being someone who is steeped in English and steeped in JavaScript, English is the human lingua franca. I mean, the reason I can just come here and drop into Portugal and not speak a language that is native to the country and get along is because English, for better or worse, is the lingua franca. And I don't know if you know these 2 quotes. Software will eat the world, and also any application that can be written in JavaScript will eventually be written in JavaScript. That is Atwood's law. If you put these 2 together, JavaScript is the machine lingua franca, right? By all, I mean, it's very much like English. It's an incredibly ugly language that has a lot of cruft from other ancestors in it, you know, like English has French and German and Latin, and, you know, JavaScript has, you know, Java and C and Scheme, and so, but the thing is it doesn't matter. What matters is how you are using it. And the fact that this is a conference about a language that is the lingua franca, to me, is just very, very exciting. I just want to make sure that we use that power wisely. And that's about it. So I just want to leave you with this quote. I want to sing such a cool song. Your phone call, let me hurry here, but you are taking an uncertain stance, cramming an apple. Thank you very much.